There is a war being waged for the soul of the Western man. It is not fought on a battlefield with guns and steel, but in the silent trenches of the mind. It's a low-boil civil war that has been raging for years inside every young man who has unplugged from the mainstream matrix and taken the proverbial red pill. This week, that war exploded into public view, and the chosen arena was the social media timeline of every person paying attention. The combatants, Andrew Tate and Matt Walsh. On one side stands Andrew Tate, the red pill pimp philosopher. A man whose very business model, running webcam shows ventures with a stable of women, is a reflection of his worldview. He is a self-proclaimed pragmatist, now nominally a Muslim, who preaches a gospel of polygamous hedonism. His prescription for young men is to abandon the institution of marriage, to instead form clans with their brothers, take many wives, have as many children as possible, and build a fortress of power and wealth against a hostile world. On the other stands Matt Walsh, the tetrad Catholic crusader. A man who defends the ancient, traditional virtue of marriage not as a contract, but as a sacrament. For him, marriage is a holy and indissoluble union ordained by God, a spiritual covenant where a man and a woman become one flesh. It is not a value proposition to be analyzed for risk and reward. It is a path to sanctification, a moral imperative rooted in the metaphysical design of reality itself. This is the fundamental conflict. The red pill versus the cross. And as we dissect this debate, it becomes painfully clear that both sides are talking completely past each other. This is not a simple debate about marriage. It is a fundamental conflict over the very nature of men, women, and the social contract in a post-feminist world. Walsh is describing a destination, but Tate is telling men that all the bridges to get there have been burned to the ground. Before we can even approach the arguments for tradition, we must first give the devil his due. To understand the magnetic, almost gravitational pull of Andrew Tate on millions of young men, you have to understand that he is not just selling a fantasy of Bugattis and women. He is selling a diagnosis. And for many, that diagnosis feels more real than anything they have ever been told by their parents, their teachers, or their priests. We have to go beyond the surface-level label of pimp and understand the core tenets of his worldview, which are borrowed directly from the manosphere. He talks about hypergamy, the biological and social imperative for women to seek out and mate with the highest status man they can possibly find. This isn't just a cynical opinion, it's a framework that explains the chaotic dating landscape that men experience every day. He operates within the framework of the sexual marketplace, or SMP, a cold, brutal arena where value is assessed with ruthless pragmatism. He popularizes the idea that the top 10% of men are competing for the top 90% of women, leaving the vast majority of men invisible, frustrated, and alone. This isn't just a meme, it's the lived reality of dating apps and modern social dynamics. And most critically, Tate taps into the deep and entirely rational fear that men have of the modern legal system. He warns of the catastrophic risk of a no-fault divorce, where a woman can unilaterally end a marriage for any reason, or no reason at all, and in doing so, legally seize a man's children, his home, and a significant portion of his future earnings. He paints a picture of a system where a man can dedicate his life to building a family, only to have it all torn away with the stroke of a pen. And here is the uncomfortable truth that so many on the traditionalist side refuse to confront. Tate's diagnosis is, for millions of men, painfully accurate. He is not creating these fears, he is merely articulating the painful reality that feminism has created a high-risk, low-reward environment for men in the context of traditional relationships and marriage. He is giving a voice to the silent dread that men feel when they look at the 50% divorce rate, the genocentric family courts, and a culture that seems to hold men in perpetual contempt. The problem, however, lies not in his diagnosis, but in his prescribed cure. The diagnosis is a bitter medicine, but it awakens the patient to the reality of his sickness. The cure, on the other hand, is a spiritual poison. Tate's solution, to build polygamous clans, to treat women as interchangeable assets in a portfolio of power, to embrace a life of competitive hedonism, is not a proactive vision for a better future. It is a purely reactive strategy. It is an attempt to outmaneuver the matriarchy by adopting its most cynical and materialistic rules. It says, if the game is rigged, I will become the most ruthless player. It doesn't seek to restore honor, beauty, or sanctity. It seeks only to win a game that is already rotten to its core. This prescription of forming pimp-like clans and taking multiple wives is a spiritual dead end. More than that, it is a solution that is fundamentally alien to the Western soul. It is a desperate, foreign graft onto a civilization built on a completely different understanding of love, family, and the sacred bond between one man and one woman. While Tate may have correctly identified the disease, his cure would kill the patient just as surely, leaving him spiritually bankrupt. Walsh is defending the sacramental view of marriage. In the Catholic tradition, a sacrament is an outward sign, instituted by Christ, to give grace. It's a physical act that imparts a spiritual reality. Marriage, therefore, is not just a social arrangement or a legal contract. When a man and a woman are married in the church, it is believed they are joined by God Himself in a holy, indissoluble covenant. They become, in the words of Christ, one flesh. The purpose of this union is not primarily emotional fulfillment or romantic companionship, though those are often welcome fruits. Its purpose is twofold: unity and procreation. It is ordered toward the creation of new life, toward building a family, which is the foundational cell of a healthy civilization. The love between a husband and a wife is meant to be a reflection, however imperfect, of the creative, life-giving love of God. This is a vision of profound beauty and immense power. In a world of transient hookups and disposable relationships, it offers permanence. In a culture of radical individualism, it offers a sacred duty to something larger than oneself. It offers men a clear and noble vocation, to be a husband and a father, to protect and provide for his family, and to lead them toward salvation. It gives life meaning, purpose, and a connection to thousands of years of Western history, faith, and tradition. It is the bedrock upon which our entire civilization was built. And yet, for so many young men, this beautiful map describes a land they cannot reach. They look at this ideal, they hear the words of Matt Walsh, and it sounds like a hollow echo from a distant and bygone era. It feels less like a practical guide for living and more like a beautiful but tragic eulogy for something that is already dead. This poses the critical question that the traditionalist side seems incapable or unwilling to answer. If this vision of marriage is so good, so true, and so divinely ordained, why is it failing so catastrophically to resonate with the very men it claims to serve? Why does the map lead to a place that no longer seems to exist on the ground? The answer to that question can be found not in theology, but in a single tweet that rips the mask off the entire trad charade. A woman on Twitter quote tweets his monologue, adding her own commentary in agreement. The tweet reads, "The most alpha male thing that a man can do is to get married to a good woman and stay faithful to her and fight to the gates of hell to stay married to her." This single sentence is a perfect crystallization of the poison that has infected the modern traditionalist movement. Here we go again. A woman, co-opting the language of male strength, alpha male, to define masculinity entirely in terms of female needs and desires. A man's ultimate strength, his alpha quality, is measured by his unwavering, unconditional servitude to a woman. He must fight to the gates of hell, not for God, not for his people, not for a transcendent cause, but for her. The entire universe of his moral obligations revolves around her. It is a cynical, manipulative framing that weaponizes Christian morality to enforce a genocentric standard. It demands everything from the man while implicitly demanding nothing from the woman, other than that she be perceived as good. It is a demand for his total sacrifice and total responsibility. And then I checked the name. Hillary Crowder. For those who are not familiar with the name, let this sink in. Hillary Crowder is the ex-wife of Stephen Crowder, the prominent Christian conservative broadcaster. Theirs was not a secular marriage, it was a proud, public, Christian conservative marriage. And 2 years ago, she unilaterally filed for divorce. But ending the marriage wasn't enough. She then embarked on a vicious, public campaign to utterly destroy the man she had made a holy vow to. She leaked private, illegally recorded security camera footage of a marital dispute to the press, cynically framing it as domestic abuse. She allied with his sworn professional enemies at the Daily Wire to sabotage his career. She publicly disclosed humiliating details about his private cosmetic surgery, an act of pure, calculated cruelty. She did everything in her power to ruin him financially, professionally, and personally. This woman, a person who committed the grave sin of divorce, who abandoned her vows, who publicly shamed her husband, who weaponized their privacy, and who embodied every single stereotypical sin of gossip, rebellion, and feminine treachery. This is the woman lecturing men on what it means to be an alpha male and demanding that they fight to the death to stay married. She is the living, breathing embodiment of every single risk that Andrew Tate warns about. She is the nightmare scenario made flesh. Her tweet is not a defense of tradition, it is the ultimate act of hypocrisy. It is the final, undeniable proof that the modern trad movement is not what it claims to be. It is a lie. Hillary Crowder's tweet is not merely the hypocrisy of one individual. It is a key that unlocks the central fraud of the entire modern trad movement. It exposes it for what it is, a simulacrum. In philosophy, a simulacrum is a copy without an original. It's a representation of something that is no longer real, or perhaps, in the way it's imagined, never was. The trad movement sells a fantasy to young men, a powerful and alluring one. In this fantasy, the man is a medieval knight, a chivalrous crusader, a stoic provider. He is called to embody the virtues of strength, piety, and unwavering loyalty. He is the rock, the protector, the leader. This is the image they project, the standard to which they hold him. But here is the critical deception. While the man is expected to embody all the chivalrous virtues of the Middle Ages, the modern trad woman is held to no corresponding standard. Is she expected to be quiet, demure, and silent in church? Is she expected to be obedient and submissive to her husband's authority? Is she expected to eschew politics and public life? Absolutely not. The modern trad woman is free to be a Twitter celebrity, scolding men in public. She can be sarcastic, coarse, and have a foul mouth. She can be rebellious and stand up to her husband. And, as Hillary Crowder so vividly demonstrated, if the man fails to meet her ever-shifting standards of emotional satisfaction, she can deploy the full arsenal of feminist legal power to leave him, ruin him, and take everything he has built. This creates an impossible, maddening contradiction. It is a system in which the man is saddled with the burdens of both traditionalism and modernism, while the woman reaps the benefits of both. He gets all of the responsibility of the past, with none of the authority. She gets all of the liberation of the present, with none of the accountability. True responsibility can only exist where there is corresponding authority. To demand one without the other is not a bug in the system, it is the very definition of tyranny. Imagine a general who is told he is responsible for winning a war, but he is given no authority to command his troops. Imagine a CEO who is held responsible for the company's profits, but has no authority to fire underperforming employees. Such scenarios are absurd on their face. No sane person would accept such a role. And yet, this is precisely the role that modern society, and its trad apologists, demand that men accept in marriage. The man is told, often in lofty, spiritual terms, that he is the head of the house. It is his responsibility to lead, to provide for, and to protect his family. If the marriage fails, it is his fault. If the children are not virtuous, it is his fault. Society places the full weight of responsibility squarely on his shoulders. But where is his authority? Can he direct his wife's actions? Can he tell her how to dress or with whom she can associate? Can he discipline the household in a meaningful way without being accused of abuse? No. In modern society, he has no final authority. The woman holds the ultimate trump card, the final veto power over the entire enterprise, the power of no-fault divorce. This structural imbalance makes the entire institution unworkable. It asks a man to take ultimate responsibility for an outcome he has no ultimate control over. It is a rigged game, a broken contract. And the refusal of the trad movement to even acknowledge this fundamental, systemic problem is why their arguments fall on deaf ears. They are polishing the brass on a sinking ship while ignoring the gaping hole in the hull. So where does this leave the young man caught in the crossfire? The answer is that he must reject the false choice he has been given. The path forward is not to be found in Andrew Tate's spiritually bankrupt hedonism, nor is it found in Matt Walsh's broken and hypocritical trad model. Both are dead ends. The only real solution is a radical one. It is the unapologetic and complete rejection of feminism in all its forms, and the simultaneous restoration of true, functional patriarchy. And let us be clear about what that means. True patriarchy is not the cartoonish tyranny that its enemies portray. It is not about abuse or oppression. It is about restoring the natural, functional, and sacred order that has been the bedrock of every successful human civilization. It is the recognition that male authority is the necessary and inseparable counterpart to male responsibility. You cannot have one without the other. It is the understanding that a man's duty to protect and provide is balanced by his authority to lead and command his household. It is the recognition that a woman's security and protection are found in her willing and virtuous submission to that benevolent authority. This is the bargain. It is the only bargain that works. It is the only path that can lead us out of the chaos of the present and back to a state of civilizational health. The war for the modern man's soul will not be won by listening to the compromised voices of the past or the degenerate voices of the present. It will be won when men stop seeking instruction on masculinity from women like Hillary Crowder. It will be won when they stop taking advice from hypocritical leaders who refuse to live by their own rules. It will be won when men have the courage to put their foot down, to define manhood on their own terms, to demand a fair and functional contract in their relationships, and to have the strength to walk away from any system, any person, or any ideology that is designed for them to fail. The choice is not between Tate and Walsh. The choice is between servitude and sovereignty. Choose wisely.